I hired her to clean the baseboards. She ended up sleeping in my bed. For 5 years. While I cooked dinners and folded laundry. While I nursed his flu and smiled through anniversaries. My husband was having an affair with the woman I paid to scrub our floors. And the worst part, I didn't find out by accident. I found out because she confessed. But she didn't apologize. She warned me. She said, "You're going to want to destroy us. And when you do, just remember, he made the first move." And so I did. Not with violence, not with screaming, but with precision. And by the time I was done, they didn't even see it coming. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, if you've ever swallowed your pride just to keep the peace, this story is for you. And if you want to hear how I burned it all down, quietly, don't forget to like and subscribe. You're gonna want to stick around for this one. People say you never see it coming. I used to believe that, until I realized the truth is worse. You see it. You feel it. You just choose to look away. And that's what I did. For 5 years. My name is Monica. I'm 37. And for most of my life, I've been described as stable. Not passionate. Not wild. Stable. I married Tom when I was 28. He was a finance guy with clean shoes and a fast mouth. I liked that about him. He made decisions quickly. He made me feel like I could stop being the one who always had to know what came next. We had our daughter, Ava, 2 years after we got married. Bought a home in the suburbs. 2 stories. White siding. Hardwood floors I was proud of. I worked part-time in marketing for a small boutique agency. Mostly from home. Flexible hours. Enough to contribute. Not enough to stress me out. Tom made the bulk of our income. And I made sure everything else ran smoothly. At least, that's what I thought I was doing. We hired Lena when Ava was 4. It was right after I threw out my back scrubbing the tub. Tom told me to stop being stubborn and just get help. I resisted at first, but eventually, I gave in. Lena came recommended by a friend. She was quiet, soft-spoken, didn't ask questions, didn't make small talk. She just worked. She was efficient, unnoticeable, in a weird way. That made me trust her. She became part of the background, like furniture that cleans itself. She wasn't beautiful in the way that turned heads, but she had that kind of symmetry that made you look twice. Warm brown skin, deep-set eyes, a slow, deliberate way of moving. She worked 2 days a week, then 3, then 4, until, without ever discussing it, she was just there almost every day. She got along well with Ava. Tom said she was the best decision we'd made since having a kid. And I believed him. I trusted them both. And maybe that was the problem. There were signs, but they were the quiet kind. The kind that don't scream. Just whisper. Like how she always arrived 5 minutes early on days I had meetings. Or how Tom started calling her by her first name more often. How he started staying home for lunch when I wasn't around. Or how Lena would hum while vacuuming, only when Tom was nearby. Still, I told myself I was imagining it, because that was easier than facing the alternative. One afternoon, I came home from a client meeting. I was supposed to be gone all day, but the call ended early. I didn't text to say I was coming home. When I walked through the door, the house was quiet. Too quiet. Lena was supposed to be mopping. Tom was supposed to be in the office upstairs. I dropped my keys, took off my heels, and heard the sound of a drawer being closed. Vast. It came from the kitchen. I walked in. Lena was standing by the sink. Tom was grabbing a glass of water. They both smiled, said hey like nothing was off, but the air felt charged, like static clinging to skin. I asked Lena if she had finished the guest bathroom. She nodded, but wouldn't meet my eyes. Tom said he was going back to work upstairs. Kissed my cheek. Left. I stood there, watching Lena rinse a spun. And for the first time, I felt like a stranger in my own home. Still, I let it go, because letting it go had become a habit. It wasn't until a week later that things changed. Lena stayed late that day, said the oven needed deep cleaning, and she didn't want to leave it half done. I thanked her, offered her tea. We sat at the kitchen table, just the two of us. I asked her how her week had been. She said fine, then paused, looked at me, not like an employee looks at her boss, but like a woman looks at another woman when she knows something she shouldn't. Then she said it. I think you already know. I stared at her, confused, tense. Know what? She didn't blink. About me and Tom. I didn't say anything. She continued. It's been 5 years. He said he was going to leave you. He said it so many times. I still didn't speak. Then she added the part that broke me. But he never did. And he never will. It wasn't an apology. It was a resignation. A cruel honesty wrapped in something like pity. I stood up, told her to leave. She did, without argument. Tom wasn't home that night. Said he had a client dinner. I didn't call to check. Didn't cry. Didn't scream. I just sat in the dark kitchen, staring at the floor I had mopped that morning. And I whispered to myself. She said 5 years. 5 years of my life. Of my marriage. Of my trust. Wasted. Or maybe not. Because in that moment, something inside me settled. Cold. Clear. If she thought she broke me, she was wrong. What she did was light the fuse. And now, I was going to burn the whole damn lie down. Quietly. Starting tomorrow. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. Not because I had to, but because I couldn't sleep. I laid there, listening to the quiet hum of the house. The place I used to feel safe in. A home I had built room by room. Now felt like a set on a stage I hadn't realized I was acting on. Tom was still asleep. He had come home late the night before. Said he was tired. Didn't ask why the lights were off or why I was sitting at the kitchen table when he walked in. I told him I was just thinking. He didn't ask what about. He never asked the right questions. I got up, made coffee, watched it brew like it was the only thing in the house I could still trust. And then I opened my laptop. Folder, exit, blank pay. I didn't know where to start, but I knew how I wanted it to end. Not with shouting, not with shattered plates or broken mirrors. No scandal, no scenes. Just a slow, silent burn, a plan with no second chances. Because when someone betrays you for 5 years, they don't deserve a second chance. They deserve to watch you walk away with everything they thought you were too weak to keep. The first item I wrote down. Bank access, passwords. Second, home deed, who's on it. Third, custody laws favor mother. I wasn't crying. I was strategizing. Tom left for work around 8. Kissed me on the cheek. Same routine. Same lie. I smiled. Told him to have a good day. He would never forget that smile. Because it would be the last time I looked at him without him, knowing I knew. After he left, I called out of work. Told my boss I needed a mental health day. She said she understood. I spent the next 3 hours combing through our finances. Bank accounts, credit cards, investment apps, every line item I had previously ignored in the name of trust. And that's when I found it. A monthly transfer. Always the same amount. Always the same day. 5 years in a row. To an account not in my name. The memo read, LV Misk, Lena's initials. Miscellaneous, my ass. I scrolled back through every statement. It had started 3 months after we hired her. The amounts varied at first, then became routine. I felt nothing. Not Ray. Not heartbreak. Just clarity. He wasn't just cheating emotionally. He was financing her, bankrolling the affair under my nose. And what was worse, he used our joint account. He used my money. I closed the laptop, took a long shower, let the hot water run until my skin felt numb. Then I called a divorce lawyer. Her name was Carmen. A referral from Danny, my best friend. Carmen was sharp, didn't do small talk, After 5 minutes on the phone, she said, "You've got a 5-year infidelity case with financial deception." "Yeah, we can work with that." I emailed her the bank statements, told her I'd follow up with documentation soon. She sent me a checklist, things I hadn't even thought of: logins, medical records, tax returns, proof of primary caregiver responsibilities, screenshots of conversations if I could get them. I didn't have texts from Lena, but I had her words, burned into my brain. "He said he was going to leave you." That was enough for now. Later that afternoon, I heard the doorbell. It was Lena. She stood on my porch holding a potted plant. Like this was just another Thursday. I opened the door, didn't say anything. She handed me the plant, said it was basil, said Ava had mentioned wanting to try making homemade pizza. I didn't reach for it. She paused. "You're not going to yell?" I shook my head. "No." She looked surprised, then smiled. Smiled like I had just proven I was still beneath her. That's when I realized she wasn't sorry. She was proud. She had inserted herself into my home, my marriage, my daily life. And she had done it slowly, systematically, like a parasite that convinces its host it's just part of the body now. I let her stand there, in silence, holding that damn basil plant. Then I said, "You should enjoy today." She blinked. "Why?" "Because it's the last time you'll see this house." Her face changed, just for a second. Then she regained composure, smiled again, and walked away. She didn't even ask what I meant. She thought I was bluffing. Tom came home early that night, said he missed me, wanted to take me out for dinner. I said sure. We sat at a sushi place we used to love, talked about nothing. He looked relaxed, unbothered. In between bites of tuna roll, he said, "You've been really calm lately." "I like it." I nearly laughed, but I just nodded. "I feel like I'm finally seeing things clearly." He smiled, poured me more sake. Later that night, in bed, he reached for me. I turned away. "Headache," I whispered. He didn't try again. The next day, Lena didn't show up. No call, no text. At noon, I found a note in the mailbox. "I think it's best if I don't come anymore. I hope you understand." I stared at the paper, then folded it, slid it into the exit folder. That night, Tom seemed annoyed, said the house felt messier already. I shrugged. "Maybe you should hire someone new." He looked at me, longer than usual, like he was trying to figure something out. Then he said, "You're not acting like yourself." And for once, he was right. I wasn't. I was acting like someone who finally stopped pretending not to know. The thing about betrayal is, once you finally stop denying it, you start seeing it everywhere. Little things, harmless comments, odd timing, all of it takes on a new weight. The way Tom always encouraged me to go out more, take breaks, treat myself, wasn't generosity. It was clearance. He didn't want me there. Not when he was there. Not when she was. I thought about that a lot in the weeks that followed Lena's departure. Tom was adjusting. I could tell. He was more irritable, pacing more, coming home later. And sometimes, when I walked into a room, he looked like I'd startled him. Good. I wanted him off balance. I wanted him to feel the cracks forming beneath his feet, the same ones I had walked on for years without noticing. What he didn't know was that I wasn't just watching him. I was preparing to leave him. Not in a storm, not with screaming, but like someone backing out of a house before lighting the match. The first thing I did was upgrade my digital hygiene. I changed all my passwords, banking, cloud storage, even my grocery delivery account. Not because I thought he'd snoop there, but because I wanted to take everything back, even the small stuff. Then I bought a small safe, installed it in the back of the guest closet. Inside, I placed copies of every document I could find: birth certificates, marriage license, property deed, tax returns, even Ava's medical records, anything I might need. in case I had to walk away with no warning. Next, I downloaded software to quietly mirror his phone activity. I had access to everything: calls, texts, browser history, and the cherry on top, GPS location tracking. I didn't find much at first. No new affair, no late-night meetups. But I did notice something odd. He'd been searching for apartments. Not for us, for himself. He even looked up how to file for divorce without a lawyer. That was when I realized he was planning something too. He wasn't just having an affair. He was preparing to leave. And that changed everything, because it meant this wasn't about emotions anymore. It was about who would strike first. And I was going to make damn sure it was me. I made an appointment with Carmen again, my lawyer, this time in person. We sat in her office, surrounded by thick files and legal pads. I laid out everything: the affair, the financial transfers, the mirrored phone data. And now, the proof that he was planning a quiet exit. She nodded, took notes. "This is good," she said. "Better than good. This is airtight, but if he tries to file first, he'll try to claim abandonment, paint you as unstable." I laughed. Unstable is what happens after 5 years of being lied to. She didn't laugh. She was already drafting paperwork. "I want full custody," I said, "and I want the house." She nodded. "You'll get both, but we need leverage." I reached into my bag, pulled out a flash drive. Every deposit he made to Lena. 5 years worth. She plugged it in, scrolled through the files, raised her eyebrows. "Do you want to ruin him?" I looked her in the eye. "No, I want to make sure he never ruins me." She smiled. "Fair enough." Over the next 2 weeks, we built the case. I started separating finances quietly, moved my paycheck to a new account in my name only, redirected Ava's school payments, changed the emergency contact at the pediatrician's office from Tom to my sister, Danny. Little by, I made myself a separate person. Tom didn't notice. He was too busy being distant, polite, like someone who had already emotionally checked out. He started forgetting anniversaries, our grocery list, even Ava's dance recital. I didn't remind him, let him dig his own grave. One night, I found a message in his deleted folder from Lena. Just 2 lines. "She knows, doesn't she?" And then, "Good, she deserves better." It wasn't guilt. It was concession. Even she saw it now. He never responded, but he didn't delete it fast enough. And that gave me something I hadn't expected. Leverage and closure. I printed it, added it to the safe. Meanwhile, I started going to open houses. Not because I was ready to move, but because I wanted to know what my life might look like. Somewhere else. Without him. I found a little 2-bedroom townhouse across town. It was small, nothing fancy, but it had light. And for the first time in months, I could imagine waking up there, making pancakes for Ava, living without fear. I made an offer. It was accepted within 2 days. I didn't tell Tom. Not yet. He still thought he was the one with the upper hand. He thought silence meant surrender, but he didn't realize I was building my exit quietly, intentionally. I wasn't going to yell. I was going to move. And when I did, I'd leave behind more than a marriage. I'd leave behind the version of myself that stayed quiet for too long. Tom used to say I was predictable. He meant it as a compliment. "You're steady." He'd say, "Dependable," like I was a table leg or a seatbelt. He never saw me as the kind of woman who would leave. He saw me as someone who stayed, who forgave, who endured. And for a long time, he was right. But that version of me no longer existed. What he didn't realize was that predictable doesn't mean weak. And sometimes, the quiet ones are the ones you should worry about most. In the weeks after I closed on the townhouse, I became the best version of myself he'd ever seen. I cooked dinner. I smiled. I laughed at his dry jokes. We watched Netflix like nothing was wrong. It wasn't forgiveness. It was preparation. I wanted him to think I was fine, to let his guard down. Because when someone thinks you've forgotten, they stop hiding. And Tom had stopped hiding. He started leaving his phone out again, unlocked. He started humming around the house, started acting like the weight had lifted. I let him believe it had. He didn't know I had already moved Ava's important documents to my sister's house. Didn't know I had updated didn't know my name was the only one on the new property title. I was 2 steps ahead. Quietly, methodically. Then came the weekend trip. Tom suggested we go away. Just the 2 of us. Said it had been too long. Said we needed to reconnect. I said yes. We drove 3 hours north to Lake House Rental, a place he used to dream about retiring to. I let him think it was romantic. Let him book the cabin, pick the music, pack the snacks. I brought only one thing that mattered. A letter. It wasn't addressed to him. It was addressed to me. A copy of my own divorce petition, printed on crisp legal paper, signed and ready. I kept it folded in my coat pocket all weekend. It sat there like a secret between my ribs. Every time he touched my hand, it reminded me who I was now. The weekend itself was uneventful. We cooked, walked, watched a storm roll across the lake. He didn't ask questions, didn't sense anything. He was already rewriting the story in his mind, telling himself we were okay, that the Lena thing was over, that I was moving on. And I was, just not with him. When we got home, I unpacked, did the laundry, tucked Ava into bed, and that night, I watched Tom fall asleep beside me, breathing steady, at peace, and I knew. He had no idea the storm hadn't passed. It was just circling back stronger. The next morning, I took Ava to the park. We played, ate ice cream, sat on a bench watching ducks. She looked up at me. "Mommy, are we going to move?" I paused. "Would you like that?" She shrugged. "Maybe. I think I want my own bathroom." I laughed, kissed her forehead. "We'll see." She had no idea. That somewhere else in the city, a house with her name on the mailbox, already existed. Later that night, I called Danny, told her I needed her to keep a backup bag for me and Ava at her place, just in case. She didn't ask questions, just said, "Of course." I started shifting things little by little. Ava's toys, my favorite cookware, jewelry, photos. Tom didn't notice. He was too busy building his next move. That same week, I got a text from an unknown number. "Lena, he told me he's thinking about leaving. Did he tell you?" I stared at it for a long time. Then I replied, "No, but I'm thinking the same thing." She didn't text back. 2 days later, Tom came home with a bottle of wine. Said he had good news. A new client, big commission. He was flush with confidence. He poured 2 glasses, raised his to mine. "To new beginnings," he said. I smiled, clinked his glass. "To endings," I whispered. He didn't hear me. That night, I checked his browser history again. There it was. How to tell your spouse you're filing for divorce. And a Google search I didn't expect. Can a cheater still get joint custody? It made me laugh. Quiet, almost kind, because he really thought, after everything, he'd get to negotiate. I closed the browser, shut off the lights, and made a decision. Tomorrow, I would make the first move. Not with Ray, but with documentation. Because I was no longer playing defense. You'd be surprised how easy it is to live a lie. If you rehearse it enough, if you serve it with dinner and tuck it into bed at night, a lie becomes furniture, becomes background, until one day you realize you've been dusting it for years, polishing it, making it comfortable. And that's what our marriage had become, a beautifully maintained lie, one I had kept clean for 5 years, and he had dirtied every chance he got. But comfort breeds arrogance, and betrayal, when unchecked, becomes bold. Tom had grown confident, comfortable. He thought he had played the long game and won. The Lena affair, to him, was over. Handled. Buried. He'd weather the storm. And in his mind, I was still standing beside him, like the loyal wife I had always been. He didn't know. I wasn't standing beside him anymore. I was standing behind him, quiet, calculating. I started recording things, not just digitally, but emotionally. The way he forgot Ava's school recital, the way he answered the phone and smiled just a little too long before saying, "Wrong number." The way he looked at me some mornings like I was someone he hadn't decided what to do with yet. I kept score, not because I needed more proof, but because every small wound helped harden the resolve I was building in secret. One afternoon, I picked up Ava early from school, just because. We stopped for ice cream. She sat across from me in her uniform, legs swinging off the bench. "Mommy," she said, "do dads ever lie?" I paused. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" I heard Jamie say her dad lied about living at home, that he lives with his work friend now. My stomach turned. "Sometimes people make mistakes," I said. "And sometimes they lie because they're afraid of what happens when they tell the truth." Ava thought about that, then nodded. "I'm glad you never lie." It almost broke me, because I was lying. Every day. To protect her. To protect us. But I wasn't ready to take her world apart just yet. Not until I knew I could rebuild it better. Back at home, Tom was in the garage. Said he was cleaning out old boxes. I glanced in on my way to the kitchen. He wasn't cleaning. He was packing. Subtle. Quiet. But there was a duffel bag. Some documents on the table. He didn't hear me. I stepped away without saying anything. Went back inside and poured a glass of wine. Then I sent a text to Carmen. "Me. He's packing. It's time." She replied instantly. "Carmen, final documents are ready. You want to file tomorrow, me?" "Yes, do it." That night I made lasagna. His favorite. We sat down like a normal family. Ava talked about a science project. Tom nodded along. I smiled. Even took a photo. Posted it to Instagram. Caption: "Family night, messy hair and full hearts." Everyone commented with heart emojis. No one knew the truth. After Ava went to bed, Tom put on a movie. Some loud action flick he liked. I excused myself. Went upstairs. Closed the door. And opened my laptop. I reviewed everything. Filing date. Fried. Requested custody. Full. Financial disclosures. Attached. Supporting documentation. Proof of affair. Misused joint funds. Abandonment indicators. I didn't feel victorious. I felt focused. Prepared. At midnight, Tom came to bed. Tried to cuddle. I let him. Not because I wanted to, but because that was the last time he would ever sleep beside me. The next morning, I got up early, packed Ava's school lunch, braided her hair, kissed her goodbye. Tom left 5 minutes after us. Didn't ask where I was going. Didn't care. I drove straight to Carmen's office, signed the final pages, filed the petition. Then I did one more thing. I went to the bank and froze the joint account. All remaining funds, about $14. Zero were locked pending legal review. He'd have to go through court to touch it. I wasn't playing fair. I was playing smart. That afternoon, I picked Ava up early again. Took her to Danny's. I didn't want her home when it happened. At 6:15 p.m., I returned home. Tom's car was in the driveway. He was in the kitchen, heating leftovers. He looked up, smiled. "Hey, what's up?" I handed him an envelope. He frowned, took it, opened it, and I watched the color drain from his face. "Divorce," he said, his voice low. I didn't answer. "You're serious?" "Yes." He looked up, blinking hard. "You're doing this now, after everything." "After everything," I repeated. "Yes, now." He laughed, a humorless sound. "So what, you're just done?" Just like that. I tilted my head. "You were done 5 years ago. I'm just catching up." He looked at the papers again. His fingers tightened. "This is brutal," he muttered. "You want full custody." I stepped closer. "I'm not asking. I'm filing." He threw the envelope on the counter. "Where the hell is Ava?" "Safe." He scoffed. "Jesus, Monica, do you even hear yourself?" "I do," I said, for the first time in years. He walked away, paced the living room, tried to find something to say, but there was nothing, because this wasn't a conversation. It was notification. He came back, tried a different angle. "We can fix this." I smiled. "No, Tom. You broke it. I'm just sweeping up." He went silent, then soft. "What about Lena? Is this because of her?" I almost laughed. "This isn't about Lena. This is about me, reclaiming what you took, my time, my dignity, my peace." He shook his head. "You're not thinking straight." "No," I said. "I'm finally thinking clearly." He stared at me, like he didn't recognize who I was. And maybe he didn't, because I wasn't the woman who folded his socks and forgave his absences and more. I was the woman who folded the end of his marriage into a manila envelope and hand-delivered it with a straight face. I walked past him, upstairs, locked the bedroom door, and slept soundly. The next morning, he was gone. Not permanently, just for the day. But the silence he left behind felt like victory. Because I knew, from here on out, he wouldn't be the one in control anymore. I was. Some people walk away from a fire. Others become the fire. I chose both. When I served Tom the divorce papers, he didn't scream. He just looked stunned, like a man who stepped off a curb, thinking there was one more step. But I had been building this moment for months, and what he never understood was that every silent dinner, every ignored date night, every forgotten promise was a brick in the path I was walking out on. And now, I wasn't walking. I was striding. The morning after he left, the house felt different, not quieter, just less fake. I made coffee, opened the windows, and let the light in. There was nothing performative anymore. No pretending to be the picture-perfect wife in the picture-perfect house. That version of me had died the night I filed. Now I was just me. Raw, tired, free. I called Danny to update her. She offered to let Ava stay another day. Said she could tell this wasn't over. And she was right. Around 11 a.m., Tom came back. He didn't knock. He still had his key. He walked in like he always did. Like the house still belonged to him. I was in the kitchen, reading through emails from Carmen, setting up temporary custody arrangements, scheduling mediation dates. He dropped his bag. "Can we talk?" I didn't look up. "You have 5 minutes." He sat down. "Hard. You blindsided me." I finally looked at him. "You cheated on me for 5 years. This is not a blindside, Tom. This is a consequence." He shook his head. "That was over. It meant nothing. I was stupid." I leaned forward. "No, you were consistent." That shut him up. He stared at the counter, then said something I didn't expect. "I didn't think you'd actually leave." And there it was. The truth. He never thought I'd go. He thought I'd stay. Like always. And in that moment, I realized something. I had never really been the wife. I had always been the backup plan. The safe place. The fallback. The dependable one. He saw me as someone who wouldn't break. Because I never screamed. Never threw things. Never left. But what he didn't know was that people who don't explode, don't disappear. We dismantle you quietly, piece by piece, until you're left sitting in an empty house, wondering how the hell it all fell apart. I stood up, walked to the door, and opened it. He looked up. Seriously. I nodded. "You don't live here anymore, Tom. You can't kick me out of my own house." I handed him a printed sheet, a temporary restraining order. He paled. "This is war now." "No," I said. "This is defense." He left. Didn't slam the door. Didn't say a word. Just left. And that was the first time I felt air return to the house. Like the walls exhaled. I spent the rest of the day reorganizing. Not just the closets, but my life. I opened a new email account, new calendar, new budget. I set up therapy appointments for Ava, and one for myself. I called the locksmith, changed every lock in the house, installed new security cameras. Not because I was afraid, but because I refused to let him back in any form. That evening, I picked up Ava from Danny's. She hugged me tight, then looked at me with those big, observant eyes. "You're not sad," she said. I smiled. "No, baby. I'm not sad. I'm rebuilding." The next few days passed with a strange kind of momentum. I filed for full legal and physical custody. Carmen backed me every step. Tom's lawyer, some guy named Vince, called mine. Tried to negotiate a friendly resolution. Carmen didn't flinch. No joint custody. No property split. We're holding everything. Then came the financial counterattack. Tom tried to access the joint account. Found it frozen. He tried calling me. I didn't answer. He emailed. "Subject, please. Let's be civil." I replied with a 3-word response. "Ask your lawyer." He didn't like that. The next morning, he showed up at Ava's school. Tried to talk to her during lunch. I found out because her teacher called me. Said Ava looked confused. Didn't understand what was happening. I drove there. Right then. Told the principal there was a custody dispute. Handed her the paperwork. That same day, I got a judge to sign an emergency order restricting contact until further notice. Tom didn't just lose access. He lost control. And that, more than anything, shook him. That night, he sent a long message. "Monica, this isn't you. You're better than this." I didn't reply, because he didn't know me anymore. The me he cheated on. Used. Underestimated. She was gone. What remained was someone who knew exactly what she was worth, and exactly what he wasn't. A week later, mediation day arrived. I wore a navy suit. No makeup. Hair pulled back. Tom showed up in a blazer and a face full of false confidence. The mediator began with small talk. Tom smiled. Said we were working through things. I didn't smile. The mediator laid out the agenda. Custody, property, assets. Tom leaned in. "Look, we can work this out privately. I just want time with Ava." I leaned back. "You had 5 years." He blinked. "You punish me by keeping her from me." I kept my voice calm. "I'm protecting her from instability, from someone who lied to her mother every day." Carmen slid the financial records across the table, highlighted every monthly payment to Lena, every dinner charged to our joint account, every secret withdrawal. Tom's lawyer went pale. "Jesus, Tom," he muttered. The mediator called for a break. Outside, Tom pulled me aside, lowered his voice. "You're ruining me." I nodded. "You did that yourself. I'm just documenting it." He clenched his jaw. "You'll regret this." "No," I said. "I regret staying 5 years too long." He looked like he wanted to scream, but didn't. I returned to the table, calm, poised, and when the meeting ended, I had retained the house, secured full custody, and ensured that Tom would pay child support until Ava was 18. He didn't speak to me afterward, and I didn't look back. A month later, I stood in my new kitchen. In the townhouse I bought under my name. Ava was at the table, doing homework. There was music playing, sunlight pouring in, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was living in a home again. Not a lie. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad. I was free. And Tom, he became a story I once lived through, but didn't let define me. He was the storm, but I was the survivor. And this time, I wasn't rebuilding for anyone else. I was rebuilding for me. There's a certain look a man gives when the world he built starts to collapse. Not suddenly, but piece by piece, like watching sand slip through his fingers while insisting he's still holding it together. That was Tom. After mediation, after the restraining orders, after he was officially locked out of our lives, he didn't vanish. He lingered, like an echo in a house with no furniture. At first, it was little things. Emails at odd hours. Not angry. Just confused. Can we talk? I miss her. I'm trying to be better. I didn't respond because I had already spoken. With documents. With boundaries. With silence. But silence makes some people louder. And Tom was never good at being ignored. He started calling Danny, asking how Ava was, telling her he just wanted to be included. She blocked him after the second voicemail. Then he tried Ava's school again, left a note at the front desk, a drawing, a stick figure family. The principal called me immediately. I filed another report. He didn't get it. This wasn't a cooling off period. This was a conclusion. And no matter how many crumbs he left, there was no trail back. Meanwhile, I was learning how to live differently. The townhouse was small, but it was mine. No ghosts, no lies. I bought a new couch, painted the kitchen a soft green, hung photos that had nothing to do with us. Ava adjusted faster than I did. She called her new room the Adventure Fort, drew stars on the ceiling with glow-in-the-dark stickers. We created new routines. Sunday pancakes, Friday movie nights, Wednesday walks with Danny and her dog. We didn't talk about Tom, unless Ava asked. And when she did, I answered honestly, softly, yes. He made mistakes. Yes, I still want him to be okay. No, that doesn't mean we go back. She understood more than I gave her credit for. One night she asked, did he love her more than us? I froze, then said, no, baby. He just didn't know how to love anyone the right way. She nodded. Good, because we love better. That night, I cried alone in the kitchen. Not because I was sad, but because she was right. We loved better, and he didn't deserve it. Weeks turned to months. The legal process slowed, as it always does. But emotionally, I was already 10 miles ahead. Tom tried a new approach. Letters, handwritten, left in my mailbox. He must have followed me one day. Watched from a distance. The first one was apologetic, the second defensive, the third angry. Then came the one that chilled me. I don't recognize you anymore. You used to need me. Now it's like you don't exist at all. I didn't respond because I was done performing. And the truth is, he never really saw me. He saw a role I played. The wife, the support, the fallback. Now that I was gone, he was furious. Not because he loved me, but because he lost control of the narrative. He couldn't say, she left me because I cheated, because that would make him the villain. He wanted me to come back, just long enough for him to rewrite the ending. So he could say I left because I was emotional, or dramatic, or ungrateful. But I wasn't giving him that. I had built too much from the rubble to ever return to the ashes. Then came the final blow. The judge ruled in my favor. Full legal custody. No unsupervised visitation. Tom would pay child support. No access to our home. No communication unless court approved. It was official. I had won, but I didn't feel like celebrating because the win wasn't about beating him. It was about freeing myself. He didn't lose a battle. He lost a family. And I didn't walk away gloating. I walked away grieving. Not for him, but for the years I spent shrinking. For the nights I made excuses for his absence. For the anniversaries I celebrated alone. For the woman I used to be. But grief is not weakness. It's the final stage of letting go. 2 days after the ruling, he showed up one last time. I was walking Ava home from school. He stood by the corner, didn't approach, just watched. Ava clutched my hand, whispered, "Is that okay?" I shook my head. "No, but we're okay." She nodded. We walked past him, didn't stop, didn't speak, and that was the most powerful moment of all. Because he finally saw it. He hadn't just lost me. He'd lost the right to speak to me. And I didn't have to say a word for him to feel it. That night, he left one more letter in the mailbox. I almost threw it away. But I opened it. Inside, one sentence. You were never the fool. You were the exit plan. I folded it, put it in the drawer, and never responded. Because he was right. I had been the exit plan. His way out of guilt, out of loneliness, out of himself. But the problem with using people as exits is sometimes they find the door before you do, and they lock it behind them. I stood in the kitchen, made tea, watched Ava build a puzzle on the floor, and I realized this, right here, was the life I was meant for. Not one built on forgiveness he never earned. Not one built on hope that never showed up. But one built on clarity, boundaries, and peace. And for the first time, I felt proud of myself, not for leaving, but for not turning back. They say healing is a sunrise. Gentle, gradual, beautiful. But whoever said that never bled from betrayal, never stared into the mirror asking, what was wrong with me? Never picked shards of their old life out of their child's eyes. Healing is not a sunrise. It's a storm that finally runs out of thunder. And I was still in the thunder. After the court ruling, I moved through the days like I was living inside a movie I didn't audition for. Everything looked right, sounded okay. But something inside me stayed, stuck in grayscale. Yes, I'd won custody. Yes, I'd kept the house. Yes, I had peace on paper. But I didn't know how to be peaceful yet. I had built my life around managing explosions, anticipating the shift in his moods, balancing smiles on my daughter's face with the truth I swallowed every night. Now the war was over, but the battlefield was inside me. Ava was thriving. She was painting more, laughing again, calling her new school less confusing. She didn't ask about her dad as much, and when she did, it was with curiosity, not grief. I was proud of that, but it also reminded me of what was missing in her life and what I had taken away, protected her from. Danny came over one night with wine and that look. The one that said she wasn't going to pretend things were okay just because I smiled. You're doing the right things, she said, but are you doing the real things? I frowned. Like what? Like forgiving yourself. I blinked. For what? For surviving. And that broke me, because somewhere inside, I still carried shame. For not leaving earlier. For letting him make a fool of me. For trusting a woman I let into my home, who folded my daughter's clothes while folding herself into my husband's lies. I thought healing meant feeling better. Turns out, it starts with feeling everything. I signed up for therapy again. Not for Ave. Not because a lawyer recommended it. But for me, the first session, I sat there in silence. The therapist didn't push. She just waited, like she knew the words would come if the room stayed soft enough. When I finally spoke, I said, I feel like I lost a war no one saw me fighting. And she nodded. That means you're a soldier, not a failure. Every week, I said a little more and cried a little less. I didn't talk about Tom's betrayal. Not really. I talked about how small I became in my own story, how I made my peace dependent on someone else's apology, and how I finally stopped waiting for it. A few weeks later, Ava asked if she could write a letter to her dad. I froze. Why? I asked. Because I want him to know I'm okay, she said. And I want to ask why he lied. I didn't want to tell her no. Didn't want to say yes. So I said the only honest thing I could. You can write it, I'll read it first, and we'll decide what to do together. She nodded. 2 days later, she handed me a folded page. Crayon handwriting. Full of questions no child should ever have to write. Why didn't you want to be with us? Why didn't you tell the truth? Did I do something wrong? My heart shattered again. But I smiled at her. Because strength sometimes looks like not showing the cracks. I told her it was a beautiful letter, that she was brave, and that none of this was her fault. Then I asked, "What would you hope happens if he reads it?" She thought for a second. "I hope he says sorry, but if he doesn't, that's okay too." And that's when I knew she'd healed further than I had. I never sent the letter. I saved it in a folder labeled "Someday." Not for Tom, but for Ave, for the day she asks again. And I'll be ready to let her decide. I wasn't trying to erase him from her life. I was just building her life without needing him in it. One evening, I went for a walk alone. No phone, no plans. I ended up outside the house we used to live in. It had new shutters, a blue car in the driveway, wind chimes on the porch. I stood across the street, looking, not for closure, but to see how small it looked now, how different it felt outside the illusion. I whispered, "Thank you for teaching me what I'll never settle for again," and walked away. Back home, I tucked Ava in. She was reading a graphic novel, asked if I could stay until she fell asleep. I curled beside her, watched her breathing slow, her hand still holding the book, and I thought, this is healing, not the dramatic stuff, but the quiet victories, like sleeping without checking the locks, like drinking tea without bracing for yelling, like not needing to explain yourself to anyone. That night, I wrote in my journal, healing isn't pretty. It's messy. It's lonely. It's ugly crying and forgiving people who'll never say sorry. It's reparenting yourself at 38 because no one else ever showed you how. It's being the woman your younger self needed and the one your daughter already sees you as. And then I wrote, I'm not done healing, but I've started, and that's more than enough for today. As I closed the notebook, my phone buzzed. A name I hadn't seen in months. Tom. Just a single message. Can we talk? Just once, please. And that was where healing met its next test. I stared at the screen. Not with panic, not with anger, but with calm. Because I wasn't the same woman who would cry in the bathroom, who would ask why, who would hope for him to be someone he never was. I was someone new now. And that conversation, it wouldn't break me. It might be the last page in the story, but it wouldn't write the ending. Some conversations don't heal. They clarify. They clean the wound, not close it. And sometimes that's all you need. This wasn't closure. It was confirmation. I sat in my car for 10 minutes outside the cafe. The one he picked. Neutral ground. Somewhere public. Somewhere we couldn't scream. I wasn't nervous. Just alert. Like every cell in my body remembered what it felt like to be dismissed, to be gaslit, to be made small in rooms where I gave everything. I walked in with my head up, hair pulled back, simple jeans, and a soft blue sweater Ava picked for me. You look calm, Danny had said that morning. I'm not here to impress, I replied. I'm here to finish. Tom was already there, sitting at the far table, 2 coffees in front of him, like we were still that couple from 5 years ago. Before Lena, before secrets, before I outgrew his shadows. He stood when he saw me. I didn't hug him, just nodded. We sat. Silence. He reached for the coffee, pushed one toward me. I wasn't sure if you still liked it black with cinnamon. I didn't answer, didn't touch the cup. He swallowed, looked down. I didn't think you'd actually come. I almost didn't, I said. But I figured 5 years of lies deserved 30 minutes of honesty. He winced, but nodded. I know I hurt you. That made me laugh. Small, dry. That's like saying the ocean's a little wet. He didn't argue, didn't deflect. A rare moment of humility. I wanted to explain, he started. You've had 5 years to explain, Tom. You had mornings, nights, anniversaries, sick days, vacations. You had every opportunity to be honest. You chose not to. He looked ashamed. Or tried to. I think I was scared, he said, of what I'd lose. I leaned forward. No. You were scared of who you'd be without me, holding up the version of you that looked like a good man. He blinked. Didn't deny it. I didn't mean to fall for her, he he said. And at first, it wasn't even about that. It was attention. It was control. There it was. The word. Control. The thing he used to keep me tethered. To keep me questioning myself. To keep me guessing which version of him I'd get on any given day. And did it feel good? I asked. To sleep beside me while sneaking out for her. To watch me cook dinner while texting her dessert. He looked up. I hated myself for it, but not enough to stop. No, he admitted. Not enough to stop. There it was. Finally. The truth. Not wrapped in apology, but laid bare. I looked at him. Really looked at him. He looked smaller. Older. But not in years. In regret. He fidgeted. Monica, I lost everything. No, Tom, you threw it away. There's a difference. He exhaled. Ran a hand through his hair. I think about you and Ava every day. She's doing well, I said flatly. She's safe, loved, unapologetically herself. He smiled sadly. She always was. She always will be. With or without your approval. Silence again. Then he asked the question I didn't expect. Do you hate me? I paused. Let the silence speak first. No, I finally said. I don't hate you, but I don't need you. And I think that's harder for you to accept. He didn't argue. And I added, hate would mean I still gave you space in my heart. But that space is full now, with healing, with Ava, with truth. He looked away, wiped his eye. You were never the problem. I nodded. I know. He swallowed again. I wanted to matter again. That's not something you can earn back with coffee, Tom. It takes showing up, day after day. And you didn't. He leaned in. Can I at least see her, talk to her? That's not up to you anymore, I said. It's up to her, and she's not ready. Maybe one day, maybe never. His hands dropped. Are you happy? He asked. And that was the only moment I smiled for real. I'm free. He stood to leave, then hesitated. Thank you for meeting me. I didn't come for you, I said. I came for me. I watched him walk away. Not with bitterness, not with pain, just with peace. Because now, the words were spoken. The damage was named. And the wound, it wasn't infected anymore. It was clean, still healing, but finally allowed to. I walked home that afternoon feeling lighter. Not because he apologized, but because I didn't need it anymore. That conversation wasn't closure. It was release. And sometimes, that's all a woman needs to write her final chapter. Some lives are built out of love, others out of lessons. Mine was built out of both. Brick by brick, scar by scar, truth by truth. And finally, it was mine. Not shared, not borrowed, not shrunk to fit someone else's comfort. Mine. It had been a year since the divorce was finalized. Since the day I watched Tom walk out of that courtroom. Since Ava stopped drawing houses with 4 people in them. I didn't mark the date on a calendar. Didn't throw a party. But I knew. My body knew. Because I finally slept through the night. Not from exhaustion, but from peace. I had taken a new job. Remote. Flexible. More creative. I started writing again. Short essays. Tiny reflections. About resilience. About motherhood. About the things women carry. And the things we finally put down. Danny said I should publish them. Maybe one day. But right now, writing was just mine. Like the morning sun through my kitchen window. Like Ava's laughter echoing down the hall. Like the soft quiet I'd spent years craving. Ava had grown. Wiser. Still joyful. But with a new kind of light in her. The kind that comes from watching someone rise from the ashes. Not with bitterness, but with grace. She had seen me at my lowest. And now, she was seeing me live. We planted a garden that spring. Nothing fancy. Just tomatoes. Basil, sunflowers. But every bloom felt like a declaration. We are still growing. Still rooted. Still beautiful. Tom emailed once. Just once. Subject line: thank you for raising her well. No body text. No signature. I didn't reply. Didn't need to. Some things don't need closure. They need distance. And I was finally far enough away. One afternoon, Ava asked, "Mom, if you could go back, would you still marry Dad?" I didn't hesitate. Yes. She looked surprised. "But why? He hurt you." "He did," I said. "But he also gave me you." She smiled. "And because without that pain, I wouldn't have become this version of me. Strong, clear, whole." "Would you ever marry again?" I shrugged. "If I find someone who adds peace, not problems, maybe." She nodded, then went back to her homework, like it all made sense. And maybe. It finally did. I hosted a dinner that summer. Just a few friends. Danny, 2 women from my writing group, my neighbor Rachel, and Ava, of course. We ate in the backyard, under string lights and stories. Laughter came easy. No one walked on eggshells. No one had to shrink to be welcome. And as I poured lemonade for Ava, she whispered, "I love this version of us." I looked around, at the food, the joy, the woman I'd become, and I whispered back, "Me too." Later that night, I sat alone on the porch, stars overhead, the kind you only notice when you stop trying to survive. I thought about all the women out there, still in the silence, still in the pretending, still thinking survival is the same as living. And I wish they knew. You don't owe anyone your loyalty if it costs your dignity. You don't have to stay just because you've stayed this long. You can begin again, and again, and again. I closed my eyes, breathed in the stillness, and smiled, because this wasn't the ending. This was my life, unapologetic, unfolding, unwritten. And this time, I was the author,